welcome back to DAOI Talks. This is another installment in our expert series. We have something completely different for you in today's episode. Normally, if you follow this channel, you know that we interview teachers of traditional Taoist martial arts or traditional Taoist meditation practices or Qigong. And we'll continue to do that. That's kind of our bread and butter. But as a nonprofit organization, Taoist Arts Organization International's stated goal is for the promotion and preservation of Taoist arts, and that includes all Taoist arts. So for today's podcast, what we've done is we visited with the family that runs the Tian Hng Buddha shop in Singapore. And the shop was founded in 1840, and what they do there is they build statues or effigies for home, temple, and institutional altars of Taoist and Buddhist deities or figures. They also restore older statues, even ones that they've not built themselves. As you can imagine, this is not a common craft in the world today. It's almost extinct, this traditional building and restoration of these effigies. So we got to visit with my friend Tze Yong, his father, Yeow Hua, and his 93-year-old grandmother, Chwee Lian. And they work at the shop there, using traditional methods to craft and restore these deities. And they're kind enough to give us a virtual tour of the shop. And Young had some very interesting things to say about what it means to be the steward of an art form like this in this day and age, and where he thinks the future of this sort of craftsmanship may be going. We had a great conversation. I learned a lot about things that I thought I already knew something about. And that's one of the great things about working for DAOI is that I'm learning something every time that I go out on one of these projects. And I hope that you learn something too when you watch these podcasts and listen to these interviews. Let us know what you think of this type of content. We are a community and we depend on our viewers and listeners to let us know what they want to see and hear. Our only purpose is to try to promote and preserve these arts in this changing world. And I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that you stick around until the end because we've put together a slideshow of images taken by the Taoist and Buddhist community there in Singapore, the customers and friends of the Tian Hng Buddha shop. And there's some really great close-up images of the work in progress and the finished works. And we thank them for contributing that. And we hope that you enjoy this interview. Thanks. Okay, it's Tze Yong of the Tian Hng Buddha shop in Singapore. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, you can call me Yong.
Yong, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for meeting with us today. So, how long has your family been at this spot in Singapore?
We've been around since 1840. We've been handcrafting wooden statues of Taoist and Buddhist deities since 1840. So I would be the sixth generation apprentice. So we're based in Singapore. We're on the edge of Chinatown, on a pretty hip street actually. You see some funky, hipster cafes. It gets pretty crowded in the evenings and on weekends, but so we're kind of like a sort time where we're a little old shop. So this is how the entrance looks like. The name Xi Tian Yuan means garden in Western Heaven. I suppose you could pronounce it that way. And probably in this shop you see about 500, 600 statues.
Now, has the shop been in the same exact location the entire time?
No, so we've been moved about. We've been moved about several times over the course of our maybe 180-year history, due to migration. So we started in China, and then we moved about a couple of times in China, and then we moved down south to Singapore, and that was in 1896. And then in Singapore, we moved about as well because of urban renewal. At the time, it was a colonial a port, and as the city grew, heritage businesses like us had to move about. Yeah, so now we're in a street called Nail Road, and we've been here for more than 30 years.
So prior to the family's trade was to make these statues prior to coming to Singapore then.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. So I went to research our Jiapu, which is basically a documentation of our family tree, and counted back 6 generations to when the craft first entered the family, when we were disciples of a master in Hong'an, southern China. And yeah, here we go, 6 generations later. So
Wow.
I don't work here full time. I apprentice here once a week. I have a full time job in a philanthropic organization where we're a grant maker. But I come here once a week to learn the craft from my grandma and my dad.
Yeah, that's great. So did you always know when you were younger that you were going to try to continue to carry on the family tradition since it's such a long tradition?
No, no,
No.
not at all. This was like a place where we had family gatherings. It was like where I came to see my dad work. But as a kid, it never crossed my mind to, even this notion was never even in my mind at all. And there was also never any pressure, never any suggestion that I should come and take over this business. I think the idea was always, you do what you want, you go chase your dreams, and this is a business to put bread on the table. And when the day comes where it has served its purpose, then we just close shop. I think it was a very practical mindset. The idea of a heritage business is really one that is externally uh, anointed.
Mm,
It's a factor of the environment. You just do what you do, and at some point when you become one of the last few standing, you become, by no action of your own, just by doing what you've been doing, by
yeah.
no new action of your own, you become a heritage business.
Yeah.
It's a bit like let's say if you know how to drive stick shift,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And maybe in 30 years' time, when every car is a self-driving car, and then you are the only fellow that still know how to parallel park and check the blind spot, then hey, you become a craftsman. You're
Right.
driving with your hands, you see, but you might be thinking, oh, what's the big deal? So that pretty much is how my dad and my grandma see the work that they do. It's really just a way to feed the family, put them through school. It was only in recent years when we started opening up ourselves more beyond our customers to the community, that there was that appreciation of our craft. And I think for the first time in their lives, my grandma and my dad saw like, oh, there was a bigger meaning to what they do, a bigger context and the importance of what they have been doing their whole lives.
Wow. Yeah, it's something I think people don't think about very much about something that's so seems so extraordinary to an outsider could be just an ordinary job to the person that does the job.
Yes, yes. We started putting ourselves on Airbnb a few years ago, and basically running tours, into this space, opening our workshop and telling the stories of the statues, telling the stories and the craft, and it was sold out every month that we did it. And my grandma was very tickled. She's 93 today, and she would ask me, who are these people? How come are they friends? How do they turn up at our shop at 3 p.m. on a particular Saturday? Do they take a bus here together? Because she doesn't understand the concept of an app, you
Yeah.
see. So I will run through with her the sign-ups before the tour and say, oh, so today we have a guest from Britain, 2 guys from US, 5 other fellows from Singapore. And she was very tickled because when these people came in, they would, whip out the cameras and they would just gush over, the work that she was doing. And at first, she was a bit tickled, but I think over time we kind of saw her take on the role of almost like a teacher,
Mm.
guiding the visitors and introducing them to the craft, but in a way also introducing them back to their identity, having a worldview of their roots, and even if they're not Taoist or Chinese, having a bigger view of the world that we all live in and how everything is connected.
Do you would you say that the bulk of your business is from tourists, or is it from customers who are looking for deities for home shrines or institutional shrines?
Oh, so our core customers are devotees. So they are the families, the individuals, but we also have temples, and they come from Singapore. They also come from Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, and And but increasingly, in recent years, after we have a bigger presence on social media, we are starting to see customers from Europe and US. And these customers are looking at these statues, purchasing them. Some of them are looking at it as works of art, but some of them are, yeah, they appreciate Taoist philosophy and they may not be devotees, but they kind of appreciate that at very much as well. So I would say it's a mix between it's a very diverse mix actually, globally. And we have about 50% of our business new commissions. So someone commissions a statue from scratch, and then the other half would be restoration. So we have a lot of these statues here in the shop. As I mentioned, about 600 statues, and some of them are as big as a chair, some of them as small as an iPhone. And you see men, you see women, you see elderly, you see children, infant in arms. Some are humans, some are animals, some are historical figures, and some are mythological creatures. But the point that every one of them is a hero or a heroine in their own right. They're all stories. The characters from stories, folklore, mythology, literature, history, and um, they all kind of symbolize a value, a life value. Maybe it's integrity, courage, compassion. Something that is eternal, timeless, and the statues kind of form that focal point for people to remember, this wisdom. So I like to tell visitors when they come to visit the shop, because a lot of them are new to Taoism, and I explain to them that, well, if you compare to other world religions, that and then you see, let's say, Christianity. Christianity is a religion where Jesus is the central figure. And then in Islam is Allah and the Prophet. And then in Taoism, you got this plethora of different figures, this universe of different characters, right? And the reason why it's like that is because this is a non-organized, decentralized religion. There isn't a pope, there isn't a grand mufti, there isn't a structure, there isn't a canon in the way that the Bible or the Quran plays in Christianity and Islam. It's very decentralized, it's very organic, just like Daojiao, right? Daojiao is about the flow.
Right.
So a lot of these were heroes that the people put on the pedestal, and worship for protection, for blessings. Because you got to know that for most of, maybe even all of Chinese history, the Chinese people were under the mercy of strongmen, whether they were emperors or presidents or whatever titles they gave themselves. And sometimes these leaders weren't always putting the interests of the people at heart. So if you were a farmer and the emperor was thousands of miles away, you had bandits on the road, your mom is sick, you got to find your own answers. You can't rely on the government to do what you need to be done. So you look to your own heroes and you make your own answers. You a lot of meaning making, a lot of pattern recognition took place. And what you see is kind of captured in this little shop.
So it's a very practical expression of the religion, not just a beautiful expression.
Right. It's a lot of self-discovery for me as well, because I didn't grow I grew up in the shop, but a lot of this was new to me. I had to rediscover it as a young adult, and looking at it from on slang basis, I started to reconnect with a lot of this. It's a lot of it is actually philosophy, literature, history, and timeless wisdom and values.
How many gods and goddesses are there in total that you represent, that you build?
Wow, I would say, well, the Taoist pantheon is really huge. Hundreds of deities. A lot of them are some of them have have smaller followings. They are known only to villagers and towns and maybe to certain professions. and some of them are known all over the world. And a lot of that depends on who were their patrons. So if your patron was the emperor and he believed in this deity, and maybe the deity did something for him, and then he would build a lot of temples. And when the people saw that, wow, the emperor prays to this god, this god's stature and standing is elevated, and then a lot of people follow suit. So, conversely, other gods may slip into obscurity because they never quite made it out of that province or that village where this deity was a village elder, and he lived a great life. He did miracles, but he was only known to a small circle. So a lot of it was very organic. Now, sometimes it also depends on the function because uh, a lot of these gods have very specific origin stories, and that plays into the role that they play, that they perform for the devotees. And this change over time. So some deities may play roles that are now taken over by the state, right? So 40 years ago in our shop, we would be making statues of Tze Yong, which is a goddess that protects mothers during childbirth, because at the time maternal a lot of mothers died during childbirth. Infant mortality rate was high, so you had to pray to a goddess at that point in your life to make it through that 9 months and maybe another 6 months or so. But today, you got Singapore is a first world country. We got hospitals and pediatricians, and infant mortality is thankfully very low. So a goddess like her is no longer so needed, among Singaporeans. It's a good thing, but it just means that her story has now been forgotten. You got another deity who is Yue Xia Lao Ren, the old man under the moon. So his job is to matchmake couples, right? Because everybody believes that you are kind of connected by an invisible red thread to your soulmate, and one day you will find this person. So Yue Xia Lao Ren is a person that pulls the threads and brings couples together. Well, today we have Tinder, right? So you don't need Yue Xia Lao Ren to do the job for you. You see. So a lot of this it was because the government has become more developed. The ministries were taking over the functions of health, of education, of housing. And what we see today in 2025 in our shop is the more popular deities seem to be the more generalized ones. So like as a goddess of mercy, you know,
Guan Yin.
there's yes, Guan Yin. There's another statue of Guan Yin over here,
Beautiful.
going through restoration. So so statues like her, she's a maternal figure. She can be all things to everybody. It's compassion, but it's also protection and maybe a little bit of prosperity. Tua Pei Gong is another one. Tua Pei Gong is an elderly gentleman. Let me see if I can find him. Let's see. Okay, so this is a statue of Tua Pei Gong. This is a very large version. He's the size of a chair. So he's an elderly gentleman, and his origin story is quite vague and quite unknown. So because of that, he can be anything that you kind of wish him to be. So today we see more popularity among deities whose functions are a little bit more malleable.
Mm.
You see, they're not so specific. I only do childbirth, or I only do education, like Kongzi. Kongzi was a statue, was a deity that was very popular last time because of the focus on academics, and schools were not as in abundance as it is today. So people ordered a lot of statues of Kongzi, but now not so much.
I was wondering, do you have a lot of the same families that use your family's business year after year, like generation after generation?
Yes, we do. So my grandfather was very smart. He was a craftsman, but he was also a businessman. So he would write on the statues. So this reads as Xi Tian Yuan Pu. This is our shop name. You see, and on the back he would write the address. This is our old address.
Yeah.
And sometimes he will even write the number, the telephone number, so that when the day comes decades later, when the statue is in need of a restoration, they know who to look for. The telephone is still there. So that's why my dad always says we cannot change our telephone number because our telephone number is on the backs of countless statues in Singapore and around the region. So today, if we wanted to do that, right, we would have to maybe put our email address or
Yeah.
Instagram handle. But that's the idea. You have to make sure that this is a sustainable business as well.
To your knowledge, has there ever, you talked a little bit before about how some deities sort of fade from popularity for various reasons. To your knowledge, has there ever been deities that your family has stopped restoring statues of or making? Maybe a provincial deity that sort of fell out of popularity that you don't make anymore, discontinued?
We make as long as there is an order. So we have an inventory. We have a manual of it's almost like a lookbook of all the deities. And when a customer wants a deity, we would just make it from scratch. So there wouldn't be a statue where we discontinue independently in perpetuity. So this lookbook basically codifies the iconography of the different deities because that's really vital in a religion like ours. And when we have so many deities, the only thing that helps you to identify them is the iconography. So in Christianity, it's comparatively easier because there's a central figure and a central there's a cross. You see, but in religions like Hinduism, in religions like let's say Catholicism, where you have the different saints and the different goddesses and goddesses, the only way you can tell one deity from another is by what they wear, what they hold, what's their posture, what's the skin color, whether they have a beard, whether they're wearing a magistrate's hat or a general's hat. Are they holding a book? Are they sitting cross-legged? Sometimes little things like that. It comes up to little things like that that distinguish a deity from another.
In addition to the iconography itself, is there a system that you use to decide auspicious times to begin the construction of a deity or the restoration of a statue?
Yes, so we use the almanac to determine when is the auspicious date to 退神. 退神 is a Chinese term for how do you say asking the deity to take a temporary leave. 退 means retreat, or to depart. 神 means the spirit or the god. So it basically means retreating of the god, if you want to translate it literally. So when a customer brings in a statue that they've been venerating at home and they want it to be restored, we would find a date to 退神 before we start to pull out the beard and give it a rinse and do all the things that we need to do. Now once the restoration is complete, we do the reverse ritual, which is called 开光. So 开光 means opening the light. That means you're inviting the deity to come back to take up residence in the statue again. So it's a bit like an off button and an on button, if you will.
Yeah, interesting. And these are rituals that you perform yourselves, or do you have someone that comes in and assists you with these?
Yeah. My dad does it himself, and I'm now learning from him how to do it. But we have customers who also have their own priests and their own monks, and if they prefer to do it themselves, that's also possible.
Interesting. So when we're talking about, you mentioned the hair and the beard and things like that. What are the statues made out of? Are they all made out of the same materials?
They're made out of many different materials. Wood is a traditional material, but they're also made from marble. They can be made nowadays from artificial materials like resin, plaster. So in our restoration work, we work with statues of all kinds of materials because these statues may not be made in our shop. They are just sent here for restoration. But for statues that we make in our shop, we do it the traditional way. We use wood. And I kind of like the idea because wood is a very egalitarian material. In the old days, forests were aplenty. It was a material where anybody could get hold of and you could work with it. It's also a living organic material. So the customers do tell us that when they pray to a statue that is made of wood, the energy transfer is different. I suppose as craftsmen, when we work on the statue, we invest a lot of patience, a lot of energy and focus. There is that transfer of the chi and energy into the statue, through the living way that we take care of it. And I think that is not the same when it is a statue that is made by machines or it is a statue that is made of artificial material.
That makes sense. Do you ever get the sense when you're working on a statue yourself, something that maybe that your grandfather or great grandfather worked on? Do you feel that sense of connection?
Uh, yeah, I do because when you see it's a very strange thing. But I suppose not many people would have the opportunity to actually touch and hold a statue that was painted by your grandfather. I mean, my grandfather's no longer around. He passed away a few years ago. And when customers bring in statues that we can tell is made by him, it's a strange feeling. It's like, wow, there's still a piece of something touched by him that is still around, that is still giving blessings to people because we recognize his brushstrokes and his calligraphy.
You're very fortunate to be able to experience something like that. That's something that doesn't happen very much in these times.
Yes, yes, I think so. And we hope for this to continue. I think the statues that we make today, we might see them maybe in 5 years, 10 years time when they come back for restoration. But they come back for restoration again and again until the day where, somebody, doesn't want them anymore, or the devotee passes away, and then the statues will be burnt or discarded. So in Singapore, we're seeing that trend of so-called homeless statues, because a lot of the statues, the devotees are now seniors. They're in their 80s and 90s, and when they pass away, their children may not be Taoists, or they may not have homes that are large enough to place such big altars. So you kind of have two options. Either you bring it to the temple and you request the temple to burn it, but that will cost you about $20 per statue. There's a little fee there. The other option is to just find a nice tree and place it underneath it, and then hope that somehow the statue returns back into the universe. But there's a problem because Singapore is the cleanest city on earth.
Yeah,
So
right.
within 24 hours, the cleaners would have gotten rid of it.
That's true. I wonder if
Yeah.
there would ever be any interest from museums and places like that to accept some of these homeless statues, or is that considered inappropriate?
I think a lot of it depends on the receiver. It's kind of how you make sense of it. I think some people do that. Some people wouldn't. There is a lot of there is a great amount of these statues, and I think the extra difficulty would be in knowing how to discern. How do you appraise the cultural value of a statue? If it's spiritual value, then that is a different kettle of fish. That is kind of how lean the statue is, how efficacious this statue has been in giving the protection and the blessings of the devotees. The one only the devotees will know, right? But if you talk about cultural value, then the question is how do you appraise when you see 100 statues? How would you know that this statue is the one that has a certain value culturally? Because that requires an understanding of iconography. And I'll give you an example, right? So if you see over here, this statue is a 玄天 Shangdi, right? So 玄天 Shangdi is a 玄天 Shangdi is like the anthropomorphism of the northern celestial quadrant.
Mm.
So what the big word means is just that he's turned into human form. He is how people imagined the northern celestial quadrant would look like if he was a person, right? So he's a general, but he's not wearing shoes, right? He's barefoot, right? So that's alluding to his martial powers.
Yeah.
He holds a sword that represents the Big Dipper, so 7 stars. and he steps on a tortoise
Mhm.
over here and a serpent. So the tortoise and the serpent represent the north, right? Because there are four animals that represent the four directions, and the combination of the serpent and the tortoise represents the north. And he is not seated on a throne; he's seated on a rock ledge. And all these are, I won't get into it, but all these are representations and reminders of his origin story. And he comes from he's said to be associated with Wudangshan,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a very sacred mountain, right?
Yeah.
So this is the most common representation of him. Now, this, if you look at this statue, he is not wearing a general's attire. He doesn't have a headwear. He has two buns, right, like a hermit. He's wearing robes. These are not armor plates in a way. These are armor plates. You see, but these are just robes. See, long sleeves. But then when you look closely, oh, you see the serpent
Mm.
and you see the tortoise, and he's seated on the same rock ledge. And then you realize that actually they are the same person. They are the same person from different periods of their life,
Wow.
right? Because before Xuan Tian Shang, he has a lot of origin stories, right? So in one of the original stories, he was a butcher who repented and went to become a hermit. Then he died and then he was made into a god. So this was him when he was a hermit. And this is him after he became a god. This is the less made representation of him because it doesn't look so, how do you say, he doesn't look so fearsome.
Yeah.
If you're a devotee, you would say, oh, let me go for this because he looks like he could protect me more.
Yeah.
Right. This look, oh, he looks like a hermit. I mean, he's a hermit. He looks pretty gentle and kind, but well, this guy has a sword and he looks awesome. So in terms of cultural value, this has a higher cultural value, but it requires you to know
Mm.
the story, you see.
Yeah. So only
It's,
someone
it's
who
a,
really knew what they were looking at would notice that.
yes, because you wouldn't miss this statue in a shop like ours, and you think, oh, you would just pass him by, and
Yeah.
you'll go for the ones that are that catch your fancy more easily.
Very interesting.
The Another example would be the monkey god. Monkey god is usually depicted
Yes.
wearing the ring on the head, and he has the rod, and he has sometimes he's holding the pitch, and he's wearing armor, right? But actually, if you know the story of Journey to the West,
Mm.
there's no point in time he actually looks like that. Because sequentially it doesn't work. He didn't acquire those things at the same time. When he was wearing the ring, he was not wearing an armor because he was no longer a king anymore. He was now a pilgrim. He was wearing monk's robes. And when he was a king, he didn't have the ring on him. All those things took place at different parts of his time. You see, and but so it's almost like a composite of the story when when we see the common representation of him. And then this is a very interesting depiction of the monkey god, right? Because usually when you see the monkey god, he's like athletic, right? I mean, you know the recent video game in China that made it so popular. He's like this hero. He is in armor. He's fearsome. Now, how come this depiction of monkey god? He looks a bit pudgy. He looks middle aged. He has he looks like he's put on some weight around
Yeah.
the belly. He's seated on the throne. He looks a bit tired. Right? He's not athletic anymore. But unmistakably, he's still the monkey god because of the fillet, the ring, and the pitch, and of course the monkey's features. So this is the depiction of the monkey god after his return from the West. Because he went to the West, 81 tribulations, he made it back, and then he became Buddha. Right? So this is him after he succeeded.
Yeah.
You see? So different statues will evoke different emotions and allude to different episodes based on how they look.
It's fascinating that they're portrayed at different periods of life like that.
Yeah, and that's something that we hope to do to really bring out the stories so that people can have a deeper appreciation of the craft. Because when I look at these statues, right, as someone who grew up in the shop and was still a bit distant, I don't see statues. I see stories, and I want to know the stories. Like, what were these ancient stories that continue to live on today? Hundreds of years or sometimes even thousands of years. And it's kind of mind blowing once you think about it. Like, these were the stories that were passed down, in the homes 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, it's really incredible to me. I can't think of another, there may be one, but I can't think of another religious tradition where the iconography, as you just described, shows different periods in a person's life because with all these different deities that have different abilities and different personalities, they're really just reflections of the human condition, right? Things that
Yeah,
all human beings experience. It's almost like they're role models.
yeah, correct. You kind of and you kind of can change the deity that you pray to when you go through different stages of your life. It's perfectly kosher. You're not betraying your previous deity. It's a very inclusive, relaxed attitude. So we had a customer. He was a cop. He was a policeman. So when he was a policeman, he prayed to Guan Gong. Guan Gong is this deity over here. Warrior, red face, long beard. He holds the green dragon crescent blade, and he's from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So you need someone like him when you're a cop, catching up, catching the crooks, right? And then later he had a career change, maybe midlife crisis, I don't know. Then he became a banker. And also when he became a banker, he then changed to worshipping a deity, the god of prosperity, because that was more aligned with his profession and his line of work. You see, so he came here and then he got a statue of god of prosperity made, and then that was who he prayed to. In a way, is kind of what I spoke about last time when if you were a woman and you were going through pregnancy during that period of your time, you had to pray to a certain deity, and then when your kid was born and your kid started going to school, then you pray to the Kongzi, to Confucius, and later when he is searching for a bride, maybe you pray to the woman of the moon to help him find his soulmate.
Very interesting. It's very Taoist, isn't it? Just the adaptation to different stages of life through
Yeah, the
different things.
flow, the ebb and flow of life.
So I noticed that some of the statues are gilded. Do you use real gold for that process?
Yes, we do. So today, a lot of the gold that you see is painted. It's gold paint actually. So it doesn't quite last. Um, but in our shop, we stick to the traditional way. We use gold foil. So this is real gold that is very papery and it's almost like feather light. And we use it even though it's more painstaking, but you will see that the shine of it can last for decades. So this row of deities over here, they were given back to us by the child of a spirit medium who had passed away. So these are maybe 40 years old, and you can see that they are still shiny after 40 years.
Wow,
Because it's gold, it's the same stuff that you would use to make your earrings and your necklaces. They have to last. You can walk around with something that looks like it's dark yellow, or yellowish green. Yeah. So it's important goal in iconography because gold is supposed to represent the sacrifice of man's most precious object to the heavens, and it's supposed to allow a small object like a 8-inch statue a presence that is bigger than themselves. You see, so it's not something that we feel should be compromised. Um, and that's why we use gold. The other interesting technique, I don't know whether you had a look at our website, is the depiction of all these motifs,
wow.
right? So the ropes are not plain, right? Before it is fully made, you would see that it is quite plain like this. right? There's nothing here. But when it is fully made, it looks like this. So that's a dragon, that's a body, the scaled body, floating above a pavilion. There's another dragon here with two eyes, and it's floating up this way to the shoulder. And there's a flower, another dragon lateral, and the ladies will have different motifs. So this relief motifs are too fine to carve. This statue over here is about the height of a Coca-Cola can, a metal can. So this little dragon right here, and its antlers and its whiskers and its mouth, you can imagine how small they are. You see. So the way it is made is through a technique that is vanishing. It's called thread sculpture. In Chinese, it is called Qi Xian. Qi Xian literally translates into painting lines, if you will. And it involves taking the ashes from the incense. So this is the censer, right? And this is the joss stick. And this inside here are the ash. Right, so this ash collected and made into a dough and beaten into a very, very fine thread that is then coiled and twirled on the ropes of the statues. So
Wow.
in a way, you see this very beautiful cycle because when you pray to the deity, you're holding the joss sticks like this joss stick, right? And the smoke after you light it, the smoke takes your petitions, the words in your heart up to the heaven, and then the ash falls, and the ash is then collected to make the clothes of the very gods that you are praying to.
That is incredible.
So it's considered holy because it is part of a ritual. You see, so the holy ash is used to make an holy object, if you will. So in China, this craft is a national intangible cultural heritage. China has a bunch of this. This is one of them that is specific to southern China. And I heard President Putin has an object that is made with thread sculpture because China uses that as a technique to make gifts for visiting dignitaries.
Interesting. Excuse me. Yeah, I've never heard of that technique before. That's amazing. And it's amazing that the worshiper actually in a way takes part in the future construction of the statues by burning the incense.
Yes, and in a way that is like it's a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense because it's like upcycling, right? This
Yeah,
ash is going to get thrown away,
right.
right? But you use it to make something that actually no other material can be used, because uh, the reason why that kind of ash is used is because it is so fine. Because remember, you have to use it to turn into a dough and then into a thread. So think about for this motif right here, how thin the thread will have to be. Like what if you cut it in half and you look at the diameter, how small is the diameter, which means how small do the grains of the composite material needs to be. If it's too big, then it's going to break very easily, right, as a dough. But the ash that we use from joss sticks is so fine that it can actually hold its shape and hold its length, even as a coin and twirl, to make all these wonderful shapes.
Wow. It's truly amazing. So let's say that someone wants to order a statue from your shop. How does that process work?
So usually they would just email us or they WhatsApp us. It's still a pretty informal process. We're a small family business, so we don't have we're not like Amazon where you could get everything automated. We haven't got that set up yet. We also don't think it makes it. We kind of like the human touch, to interact with our customers. So they will let us know which deity, uh, what is the height in inches that they need it to be, and then that's about it. Then we'll give them a quotation. And the good thing about traditional craft is that even though the price is higher than machine-made statues, they do take a longer time, which means that the payment can be spread out over a longer time. They pay about 30% deposit, and then 4 months later, when the statue is completed, they can pay the balance. So they have a time to kind of save up for it for something really special that you can't get anywhere else because it's every piece is unique.
Yeah. It's incredible. Unique history too. So what do you see as the future for the shop?
Wow, I hope that we can find a way to have this shop continue, hopefully for another 100 years or more. I'm thinking beyond my lifespan. I have to because my grandma is 93. She's in the background. By the way,
Yeah,
she's
that's good.
93. My dad's 72. Actually, why don't we go say hi to her?
Yes, please. I'd like to say hi.
阿妈，这个是我的朋友，
Hello.
他是加拿大来的他叫 William 对，我的朋友，他叫 William 啊，跟他打招呼，
Pleased to meet you.
他讲很高兴碰到你。She doesn't speak English, but she's very happy when we have friends uh, coming to visit the shop as you are right now. So I do hope to have this shop continue for another be beyond my lifespan, and so I had to think in that kind of time scale. It's not, I think, common for businesses to have to think like that. If you're a listed company, you think in terms of quarters, quarterly results. But I think for us, we have to think like that because um, we just really want this shop to continue. And what does it mean for skills transfer, knowledge transfer? What does it mean for organizational size, for processes, for location, for finding our niche in a world that is changing? What is our value add? Who are our customers? What are they paying for? How much will they pay for? What is the time that is needed? I think all of that has got to be thought about with that kind of time scale. So I don't want to do what I'm doing right now and then end up, you know, where 30 years later back at square one. I have to think about who are we going to pass this skill to? Is it to my children? And I have two daughters. One is into F1 and the other is into K-pop. So the chances are not high that they're going to take on this business. But then again, you never know. But then you can use that as a planning parameter. If they do come aboard, it's a bonus, but you need to have a solid plan A that is not relying on that. You see, so what is that, and how do we preserve our our trade secrets even as we grow the team? So
I wonder if there's ever been any interest from the Singaporean government in preserving the shop just because of its cultural significance.
there is a lot of interest in the shop, but we shouldn't. I mean, I shouldn't be counting on the government to keep us alive. Because we don't owe nobody owes us a living. We have to make it work just like my ancestors did. I imagine it's 10 times more difficult what they went through compared to what I'm doing now. And if they could do it, of course times are different, but I had to take a lot of courage from their gumption and the resilience that they drew on to make it work. You see. I hope that the shop will. I mean, if everything fails, the shop uh, becomes a museum. That's the default. There's still a fallback option. It'll be a nice, pretty museum, but for me, that would be a failure. That would be a picture of failure because I think a museum uh, it's not alive. It preserves something that has already died. But I want the shop to be living and thriving. It doesn't have to be big, but every day you come to the shop, you see something different, something different on my dad's table. It might be the statue that he worked on yesterday, but today you look a bit different. Customers coming in, coming out. There is a vitality to that as a shop, as a business that is still putting stuff out into the community and taking things into the community. I think that interchange is very important when it comes to heritage because it makes it alive. It's not just an object you go to see and say, oh, okay, that's really cool, and you move on.
Right. Yeah,
So wish me luck.
I do wish you luck. I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and it's a living tradition. And I think that when people see that, they can get excited about it because it's something it's not common at all to see in today's age. And and
Yeah.
seeing the processes behind it and learning about it, it's so beautiful and so unique that I certainly hope that people will watch this and take interest and help to continue to grow the business because it certainly deserves to survive. It's a beautiful, beautiful cultural treasure.
Yes, yes, I hope so. And I've been looking around for inspirations and examples, and I'm finding them in the European luxury brands.
Hmm.
Because a lot of the luxury brands like Hermes, LV, they started out as craftsmanship studios. I don't know, 100 years ago, right? So they might have looked a bit like us,
Yeah.
but they have kind of transformed to what they are today. It is not our ambition to become luxury or to become global like they are today. But what I'm interested is how they have branded themselves. And I think there's something we can learn from them. Tell the story, be evocative and aspirational. Because I think for handmade objects in today's world, if you want it to survive, it has to have a premium pricing. That's the numbers game. You can't really go away from that. You see. But how do you justify that? You got to then speak to the emotions, to the heart, to say that you're not just buying a suitcase, an LV suitcase. You're buying the adventure of travel. I don't think people actually use the suitcase, but it
Right.
evokes all that timeless ideals and aspirations. And I think we could learn a thing or two from that world, even though we're so far removed from it, and lean on the bank of ancient stories that we have. There's a lot of content here. There's
Yeah.
5,000 years civilizations content right here for us to dig into and bring out so that it can resonate with modern audiences again.
Well, it's truly wonderful what you're doing. I salute you and your family for doing it as well.
Well, thank you.
Tze Yong, could you tell people where they can find you at?
Yeah, we have a website. It's tianhng.com, and we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on WhatsApp.
Great. We'll put links in the description to all of that so that people can find you, and I hope that they seek you out because this is it's a truly amazing tradition that your family is carrying on. Thank
Right. Thank you.
thank you for talking to me today.